Hey Han, I'm Chloe and this is the Cradle Split Grip Tuck Spin or Jamilla Tuck tutorial. My mission is to share my passion for pole dancing and make pole dancing easy to learn and accessible. This is the 15th video of the intermediate pole trick tutorial series. In order to maximize your training out of all the videos, I highly recommend you to start from the very first video of this playlist, as the tricks will be a progression of the video before. The Cradle or the Split Grip Tuck Spin is a really exciting move to learn. It is the foundation of a lot of moves to come. We are going to have 7 variations of our tuck spin today. Your prerequisite for this move is your tuck spin or baby Jamilla, so make sure you watch that before. This video is mirrored for your ease of learning. I'll have a red wristband on my right wrist and my right ankle to indicate the right side of my body if you do get confused of the directions. This trick tutorial is created for you for information and educational purposes only, and for you to enjoy learning pole dancing from the comfort of your own home. Please participate at your own risk and don't work beyond your capability, and seek help or spotting when necessary. For any health concerns, please make sure you seek professional medical advice. Please also to make sure you warm up your body before you start this video. I have a warm-up depending on your level under each playlist so that you can try that warm-up before you do these tricks. If you enjoy this video, please make sure you give it a thumbs up so that I know to create more of these kinds of videos, and consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet so that you are notified every single time I upload a video. If you're looking to further your pole journey and combining tricks and dance together, then consider subscribing to my online learning platform, Pole Art Vault, where you'll be learning tricks and dance together and learning an entire routine with combos and dance mixed. For further information, you can find the link in the description. Alrighty, without further ado, let's get into the tuck spin tutorial. Alrighty, let's get into our conditioning. We've got 2 conditioning exercises to do today, starting off with our reverse plank split grip pull-ups. So let's just try this together. We're coming onto the left side of the pole. Now from there, you're going to step both of your legs forward and you're going to start leaning back until your hip hits the pole. Now your top hand, your outside hand, so since I'm on the left side of the pole, my right hand is going to come at shoulder height. Then I'm going to start reaching down, sliding that bottom hand in a pistol grip until my hips are level to my knees. So make sure that your bottom hand and top hand height is around the same. So you want to make sure that your hip is right in between that bottom hand pistol grip and top hand true grip hand. Now, if you do struggle in that position, then feel free to keep your top hand a little bit higher. However, ultimately, you do want to drop that hand down so that the distance between your hip to your top hand and also your distance between your hip to your bottom hand is the same distance. Now, once you get into your reverse plank position, we're going to pull through the top hand, push away through the bottom hand. You're going to lift your chest up and then you're going to lean your head back where you started. So let's try this together again. So legs a little wider so that you can balance yourself. You're going to get your butt onto the pole. Your outside hand comes at shoulder height, and then you're going to start sliding that bottom hand down and start sliding your top hand down. Now, if your bottom wrist hurts, make sure that your wrist is facing up. Pull through your top hand, push through your bottom hand. You're going to pull up, lean back. Pull up, lean back. And pull up and lean back. Well done. We're just going to do 3 on each side. And now on the other side, which I'm about to demonstrate, just make sure that if your bottom wrist starts to hurt, even after correction, then you might want to start working a little bit more on, well, one, either strengthening your forearms, strengthening your grip, If you have any issues around sort of like your wrist area, even after correcting your technique, you might need to seek medical advice if that helps you. Now, otherwise, when you're pushing through that bottom hand, just remember if you do have your pole on spin, so that your pole isn't spinning too much, so your wrist should be facing directly up. Your index finger is pointing down to the floor, and then your wrist is facing up. If not, and then if you're starting to turn, that's when you're gonna either get injured or it's not a great experience on your wrist. Now, the most common one is for your wrist to start turning in, and you can see that my elbow starts to flare out. Make sure that you tuck your elbow towards you and push through that bottom hand, and that should help you with the push. Other option is to put your pole on static. Let's try this on the other side. So I'm stepping both of my legs forward. Now I'm gonna get my hip onto the pole. Grabbing my outside hand, so my left hand at shoulder height, and then I'm gonna start dropping my body back, and then bottom hand comes into a pistol grip. Start sliding your top hand down if you can. Good, you're gonna push through the bottom hand, pull through the top hand, use both of your hands equivalently, push up, and then lean back. Up, and lean back. Last one. Good, well done. Now, if you felt like you were pulling too much in one hand, remember you want that equal strength through your top hand, pull, and then push through that bottom hand. Make sure that you're equally using both of their strength, and then that's gonna help you mitigate any sort of unequal pain through either of the hands. Now, let's go through our next one, which is just gonna be our knee tucks. Now, with our knee tucks, we're gonna come onto the floor instead of the pole. And we're gonna practice getting a knee all the way towards our chest. Now, if you can do this without the pole, go ahead. If you do need the pole, go ahead and grab it. Now, we're going to lean back, and then we're gonna tuck our knees in and then out. Now, if you'd like, you can also place both of your hands on the floor or grab the pole with one hand, other hand down onto the floor. This is really up to you. All right. Now, if you feel like you can, go ahead, take both of your hands off the floor. That's totally an option for you too. So let's try this together. We're gonna do 10. So hands down or hands off, and 10. 9, make sure you're extending that leg all the way. 8, 7, maybe take your hands off. 6, 5, knees together. 4, tuck your knee all the way to your chest. 2, and last one. Well done. That's all of your conditioning done for today. Alrighty, now let's go through our cradle or tuck spin. Now you can do this both on spin and static. I'm gonna show you how to do it on spin first, then we'll go through static after that. We have 7 variations today, so that's gonna be quite a fair bit of variations, which is really exciting. So this is what a cradle or a tuck spin looks like. First variation. Second variation. Third variation. Fourth variation. Fifth variation. Sixth variation. And lastly, the 7th one. Wow, that was a lot to go through. So let's try this from the very first one. Your first one is your very most traditional cradle spin or tuck spin. Now, let's just try this from the floor first, all the way down. We're sitting down. Now, with your cradle or your tuck spin, your main grip point is the top of your thigh and your stomach. And obviously both of your hands that are in a split grip. So your top hand, true grip, bottom hand, pistol grip. Most important grip point is gonna be your stomach. So we're gonna sit on the right side of the pole, and then I am aiming to get my left hip onto the pole. Now from there, I'm going to start leaning to the side until my lower abdominal area is touching the pole. Now from there, you're gonna tuck your knees in and then think about pulling your knees towards your chest, and you can probably feel all the grips through your lower abdominal area and also the very high area of your quad. So try remembering this sensation when you're doing your cradle, because most of the grip points are going to be from your stomach and your top part of your thigh. Now remember that we have covered the baby Jamilla or the baby tuck spin in beginners pole trick tutorial series. So make sure you watch that before you do this one, because if you haven't done that one before, this is going to be even harder than that first one. Now, let's try coming into our cradle from a lunge. This is gonna be our second point of contact. So, once you come into your lunge, I'm standing on the right side of the pole with my inside leg on the floor, outside leg in forward in a lunge. Now from there, my outside hand, so the same hand as that leg that's forward, is gonna come at shoulder height or neck height. Now my bottom hand is gonna come down into that pistol grip. Now remember that your bottom hand for this one, this is a very, very common one where a lot of people experience pain through the wrist or the forearm. So just make sure that when you're pushing the pole down, your index finger is pointing down to the floor, and think about having your wrist facing up into the ceiling. Now, if you feel like your wrist is starting to turn in, and you can see that my elbow is turned away, tuck your elbow in and almost think about tucking your elbow towards your side or your stomach. If it helps you, you can also just place your elbow onto the side of your stomach here for extra security for now. Now from there, once you come into your lunge, you're gonna lift your inside leg up and get that pole right into your hip crease, pull your knees towards your chest. Now I'm gonna turn to my side and think about looking towards your bottom hand. Then from there, you're gonna bring your outside leg up and over, press your tummy into the pole, and then there you have it. Stepping down with your inside leg, then outside. And that's your split grip cradle from a lunge. So if you started to feel comfortable in that, then we can take it up onto the pole. So let's try this together. Now your outside hand is gonna come at shoulder height or neck height. This is gonna really depend on the person. Your bottom hand, so your inside hand, is gonna bring down all the way to knee height. Now remember that you wanna ensure that your hip is gonna come right in between those hands. So that means that I want my hip right here. Now, from there, I'm gonna step with my outside leg, so the same leg as a top hand. I'm bringing my hip up, and then I'm gonna roll both of my knees in and tuck into a tuck spin. Well done, that was great. Let's try on the other side. Now again, if you feel like your wrists are hurting, try not to overdo it. Seek professional help if you need to, or otherwise remember, tuck your elbow in. You wanna think about almost like turning your wrist away from the pole. So, I'm standing on the left side of the pole, outside hands on my left hand at neck height or shoulder height, inside hand at knee height. I'm stepping through my outside leg, so my left leg, lifting my inside hip up, rolling on, and then leaning to your side. Make sure that you're leaning your head all the way to the side, pull those knees towards your chest, And to step out with your outside leg, then inside leg. Beautiful, well done. So there is your traditional cradle. Now let's go through a few of our variations now. So our first variation is your outside leg straight and inside leg bent. So remember, you want to extend your top leg and bend your bottom leg. Now our second variation is the bottom leg extended and your top leg bent. So essentially you're just swapping those legs. Now our third variation is straight legs. So let's just go through those three together. Outside hand at neck height, inside hand at knee height, stepping through the outside leg, lifting both of your legs up, top leg extended, bottom leg bent, swap it over. Then lastly, you're gonna extend both of your legs. If you want to, you can also cross them. Perfect. That's it. Alrighty, now let's go through the last three variations of our tuck spin. Now I'm just gonna do this on the other side to even things out. For the last three of them, our first one is a cross-legged cradle. So you're gonna cross your outside leg, the leg that's on top, over the inside leg. Then our second one, our second variation, we are going to take your top hand off, only if you're feeling that security. Now our last one, you're gonna cradle, literally, your knees with both of your hands, and then you're gonna take both of your hands off. So, standing on the left side of the pole, outside hand at neck height, inside hand at knee height. I'm stepping through my outside legs, so same leg as a top hand, stepping through, lifting my inside leg up, hip to pole, tuck. I'm crossing my left leg over the right, outside leg over, lean to the side. If you can, taking the hand off. Good. Now lastly, I'm gonna bring my knees all the way in. Top hand comes off first. Pull those knees in. Slowly see if you can take that bottom hand off. Then hug those knees in. To come out, you can grab the pole with your outside hand, inside hand. Then coming out. Well done. So there you have it. There's all 7 variations of your tuck spin, your cradle, or your Jamilla tuck. Our first one was a very traditional one. You tuck both of your knees in. Second one, top leg extended, bottom leg bent. Third one, bottom leg extended, top leg bent. Fourth one, straight legs. Fifth one, cross leg, outside leg on top of the inside. Sixth one, cross leg, no hands. No top hand comes off. Then lastly, completely no-handed cradle. Well done. That was a mammoth job. Now that I put my pole on static, I'm going to show you how to do a cradle on a static pole. Now, just to preface this, I am wearing sticky leggings, so it's going to be a little bit harder for me to kind of like glide around the pole, but I'm gonna do my best to show you how to do it on static. Now with your static pole, remember that you want a little bit more gap between yourself and the pole before you start to create that momentum. If you start really close to the pole, then it's gonna be really hard for you to get that spin around. Now start a little further away. Remember, you wanna step through your outside leg. So I'm gonna start a little bit further away, then I'm gonna step in and catch the pole with my outside hand and step through the outside leg. So step. Now from there, your key point here is to swing your inside leg around as if you are doing a fan kick. For those that haven't watched the fan kick, I highly recommend you to watch that because the fan kick movement is very similar to the entry for the cradle. So I'm stepping through and I'm swinging my inside leg around like a fan kick, like you just saw. I'm stepping, swinging, and then I'm turning my body into the pole. So you can see that I'm facing away from the pole and then I'm turning into the pole. So you want to almost create this sort of motion where you're stepping away, then turn in. That's how you can generate that momentum. So I'm stepping, swinging my inside leg, tuck, and stepping out. Now, that's how you can create the momentum. Obviously, if you want to do the cradle just statically, like completely static, you can do that. If you need that rotation or if you want to generate that rotation, that's how you create the momentum. Now, the other thing to know is try not to grab the pole too firmly. Remember, you almost want to unlearn everything you learned in spin when you are doing anything on static. So you're grabbing the pole less, you're creating a lot of momentum, step away from the pole, and then you want to be quite quick with your movement. So in order to create that tuck, you just tuck at the very end quickly, and then you're going to get that nice spin. So grab the pole a little bit less through both of your hands, so less grip, the better. So step through, swing your inside leg around, tuck, and then step out. Well done. So there is your cradle on a static pole. All right, let's go through some tips and common mistakes. Our first common mistake is the hand positioning. Now remember, I mentioned that the hand positioning is going to be very crucial for you to firstly mitigate any injury and any pain through both of your hands. So you want to always ensure that your hip or your entire body is right in between that top hand and the bottom hand. Now, the most common one is that your hips start to slide down and then you end up sort of jamming your bottom wrist. This is a very, very common mistake that happens. Now, if you feel like you are sliding down, just very gently slide out of it and come out of it. Try not to hold it for too long because you do not want to jam that bottom wrist. So in order for you to get that right grip, remember, grip is going to be very crucial. You need a lot of grip through your hands and your hips. Let's just revise our grip points. Our top hand, true grip. Bottom hand, pistol grip. You need a lot of grip through the top of your thighs here, your lower abdominals. Now, if you don't have any grip there, make sure that you get some grip aid that's going to help you. If you have sweaty skin, you might want to get a little bit more dryness to your skin. You still, for some people, they still prefer a little bit of tackiness. So make sure you find that right median. And if you do have dry skin, then you want something a little bit more moisturizing. Remember that I have linked all the products that I use in the link in the description. So check them out and see if any of those grips work. Otherwise, do your own research. Now, remember that you can always use sticky leggings as well. If you really struggle with grip ultimately, I find that these are super helpful because I have really dry skin. It's winter in Australia right now and it is just not a vibe. It is super cold. So you can see that it's really easy for me to grip even without using any grip aid. You can see that I like completely did that cradle at ease. So that's another option for you too. Now, let's just go through that bottom wrist situation. So again, I have mentioned earlier that your bottom hand grip is going to be extremely crucial. If you need to keep working on strengthening your wrist, I do have other tutorials such as the carousel that we've done in the past. That's going to be really good split grip, or some people call it bracket grip conditioning as well. So make sure you check that link out. I have linked it just above somewhere here. Now, let's go through the hand positioning just to, I guess, like clarify that again. I'm making sure that my trigger finger, so my index finger, is pointing directly down to the floor, and I'm ensuring that my wrist to elbow is neutral. So the reason why people start to get injured is because that there's no straight line going from their index finger to their elbow. So the most common one is this kind of shape, or turning out, or maybe you're overextending your wrist. So when you're seeing my side view, I'm actually, you can see that if I'm like bending too much like this, that's a cause of injury. If you're overextending this way, that's a cause of injury as well. So think almost like you want a straight line all the way from your index finger to your wrist to your elbow, and that's going to help this support through all your joints and ligaments as well. So remember, if you feel like you don't know if you're in the right position or not, you can always message me, or you can also look at yourself through video and see if you're creating that straight line from your index finger to your wrist to your elbow. Now the other thing to know is obviously you want to make sure that you can see the top of your wrist facing up. If you feel like your wrist is turning, you might want to put your pole on static for now to see if that helps, and then you can obviously do it on spin a little bit later. The next common mistake is the different technique on spin versus static. Now remember that when you're on a spin pole, it is completely different technique to when you're on static. Whereas when you're on spin, you would start a little bit closer to the pole, because if you generate too much momentum, you're going to spin out of control. Whereas on static, you have to start quite further away to generate the momentum. Now the other thing with spin versus static is that you need to grip less if you want to create momentum and rotation on static, whereas on spin, you're essentially just grabbing the pole as hard as you can, because you're not really, there's no friction whatsoever while you're on spin. So remember the little, I guess, everything you've learned on static, you just unlearn on spin, is how I usually just mention it, because I think that way it's just easier to kind of remember. So remember that there's a huge difference in terms of technique on static versus spin. Now the next one is our head positioning in the cradle. This is a really common one as well, because when you're in the cradle, I see a lot of people keeping their head upright. Now this is totally understandable, because human anatomy wise, when you're thinking through your head, you feel like you need to keep your head still, because if you like swing your head around, then it's hard for you to really think. So human beings, we want to always be upright and then keep our head very rigid. Now when you're in that cradle, you want to ensure that you're leaning all the way to your bottom hand. So you're leaning your head forward and then slightly down to the floor. Now, when I'm talking about the lean, this is another common one as well, where I see a lot of people leaning to the side, but not slightly forward. If you lean to your side and backwards, that's how you kind of like get yourself out of the cradle, because you can see if I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna lean backwards, and then you're gonna lose all your grip through your hip, you're gonna lose all your grip through your bottom hand. So ensure that you are leaning to your side, but you're leaning slightly forward to get that tuck through your knees and also the grip through your thighs as well. So once I come in, I'm leaning to my side, but forward. And that's how you get all the grip. Now remember that if you feel a little unsure about your technique, always work yourself backwards. So come down onto the floor, work on that tuck on the floor from a lying position on your side, and then you can also obviously do it from the lunge as well, which is the next step up. Now the next common mistake is the leg you're stepping in with. Now I do see a lot of people stepping the wrong leg forward, and then that's how you end up not having the correct, I guess, like entry. Now the easiest way to get into a tuck, and if you're struggling with that first entry instead of stepping, is that you can lift your inside leg up and then roll onto your side. That is another option in terms of your entry. However, since we've already done that entry in your baby Jamilla, just make sure that you keep practicing that. If you haven't done the baby Jamilla, do that one first, then come to this, because it's going to be a progression. Now, once you step and lift, This one, it doesn't really need to, you don't really need to step if you are to do this variation. But remember that if you are stepping into it, you're generating a little bit of spin either on a spin pole or static pole. Always step out with your outside leg, so the same leg as your top hand. Once you step, then you're lifting your inside leg up, and then that's how you can also create a little bit of momentum to get into that spin. Now, in terms of your entry into the tuck spin, this is how you get into the correct positioning of your stomach and your thigh grip. You're essentially rolling your grip, so there's a bit of a grip point change, not a bit actually, there's a fair bit of grip point change from your hip all the way to your thighs. Now, as you can see, when I step and I lift, I'm gonna try doing this really slowly. I'm starting off in my hip grip. So you can see that my hip crease is on the pole and the side of my glute is on the pole. Now from there, I'm actually turning and then all the way until my bottom leg is gripped, then my top leg is wrapping around and then tucking in. So remember that your grip is going to change from here to here, and then once you come out of it, and let's talk about the exit now, is that from here, you're going to slide it back to where it was. So you're essentially doing what you did and then undo what you did, if that makes sense. So remember that your entry and your exit is both super important, because if you don't enter properly, that's how you end up injuring your bottom wrist, or I mean, you can obviously injure a lot of different parts when you're doing things incorrectly. So just remember, especially that bottom wrist, always be careful with it. And your exit, that's another common part that people start to hurt. Maybe your entry, it doesn't hurt, and then suddenly when you start coming into your exit, that's when your bottom wrist start hurting. Most likely because you're not pulling your body in back correctly. So remember, once you finish your tuck, roll it back and then just step out firmly before you take that bottom wrist off. And when you're taking that arm off, remember you want to bring your posture upright, then come out. If you try turning in, that's how you start hurting your bottom wrist. So you're starting upright, turning your body in, come back upright, then step out. So ultimately, your head should be aligned to your knee and hip. So it's almost like your head should be lower and then aligned to your knee, to your toe and your hip. So that's the correct tuck spin. I see a lot of tuck spins where your head is quite high like this. Just make sure that you're leaning all the way to your side, because if you can get this technique correct now, a lot of the moves that are about to come are going to be way easier for you as well. And that's all the tips and common mistakes. All right, I have a little mindset tip for you today, and especially doing our tuck spin. A lot of the times, tuck spin is not best for a lot of body types. Now, when I say body types, it could be from, different conditions you have throughout your body. It could be like a joint problem, ligament problem, especially because that bottom wrist starts to really load. Now, remember that I have built this intermediate pole trick tutorial series so that it is in chronological order of sort of like your levels and progression. But remember that you don't have to always tick off every single trick. And especially when it comes to tuck spin, that bottom wrist is going to be in a very compromised position. So if you're like, oh, this is not for me, just remember, abort it. There's a ton of other trick tutorials that you can pick from. And honestly, it's not the end of the world if you don't get one. Like, there's a lot of tricks that I would never be able to achieve or never be able to do, or I'm scared of, I don't like. It depends on the anatomy, So honestly, if you feel like it's not for you, that's totally fine. Remember, there's a ton of other trick tutorials for you to do as well. Thank you so much for joining me in the Cradle tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I shall see you in the very next tutorial. Bye. Oh, dang, I'm on struggle street today. I can't talk. Not a great I can't talk today.